get your analysis then on the coalition discussions, in particular movements around the Democratic Alliance and the 5 other parties involved in coalition discussions in Tshwane and Johannesburg. Bring in Political Analyst Ongama Mtimka joining us from the Eastern Cape tonight. Ongama, always great to speak to you. So the DA says it's going to go ahead on Monday and put forward its candidate for Mayor of Johannesburg, Mpopalazi, despite unhappiness with these parties that are helping it to secure leadership in Tshwane. Is this a gamble worth taking?
Good evening, Thembekile and your viewers. So I can understand the position that the DA is advancing as far as being anxious about being part of a coalition, a minority coalition that would need the support of the EFF in order to take certain decisions. The reason why Johannesburg has got that finds itself in that situation is that if the DA and the parties that they are talking to, secured that municipality, it would not be through a margin that is above half of the seats that are in council, which is required for passing budgets, among other things. So I can understand that position. However, it is not only the evidence that it's not only anxious, but is actually working against that plan by other smaller parties is evidenced by the fact that they are fielding their own candidate. So they could hold the position that the EFF has held if they were not, behaving in bad faith. They could hold the same position the EFF has said that, look, we're not going to be part of a government led by Action SA because we're anxious about the fact that we're going to need the EFF's support all the time. However, in this instance, they are not. They are actually acting against that common opposition bloc, which can be expected to raise the ire of the other political parties.
So, coalitions by their nature are centered on the idea that I give you something and I get something in return. These parties have agreed to help the DA secure Tshwane and lead it, right? Yet the DA is unwilling to compromise in their favor in Johannesburg. They say, speaking to us tonight, the ACDP and UDM, there'll be a meeting tomorrow, Sunday, to discuss this. Have they essentially been worked into a corner here where they have to go with the DA anyway in Tshwane because they've all disavowed any sort of support for the ANC, so they're stuck, even if they've been shortchanged to a degree?
I don't think they're stuck. I think that the parties may still have room to change their minds, but I don't think they will want to do so for the reasons that you highlight. I think they'll be able to actually isolate this matter because among those parties that are, said to be partners in Tshwane, none of them are really keen. Most of them, in fact, are not keen to work with another alternative. So I think that they are most likely going to try and persuade the DA to change from acting in bad faith. Because if the DA said, look, because I can understand the reasons for not wanting to be in a coalition that is dependent on the EFF. Now, if they as a party didn't want to be in that position, why act against the common interest of all the political parties then, if their gripe is that they have not enough margins in order to win? Are they perhaps banking on them being able to lead a coalition government? If they don't have that prospect, then they are really acting in bad faith if they are going to field a candidate, notwithstanding their very same anxiety that they don't have enough numbers to be able to actually, have a coalition. And by the way, Thembekile, this point that they are raising goes to the core of the argument that I've made recently, that political parties, in focusing on zero-sum win-lose arrangements and competitive politics willy-nilly at local government level, they are missing an opportunity to constitute a government of what you would call local unity. in terms of which they would drop the executive mayoral system, because it's not going to work in that political context of Joburg, and take the collective executive system and have a government there that's representative of all the political parties. In that way, you do away with the toxic politics of competition, because in fact, even what they're doing in Tswana is not going to be sustainable, because the margins are always going to be tempting reconfigurations of power in the next 5 years. We've already seen that happen since 2016. Nothing stops it in the way that things have been done from happening again going forward.
So to that point, in both my discussions with the Reverend Kenneth Mishra from the ACDP and General Bantu Olomisa from the DA, they use the same turn of phrase, saying the DA should not approach or adopt a big brother sort of position because it's got the largest number of votes overall. In fact, General Olomisa said, even if the DA has more seats than they do, those are meaningless without their support. So as things stand, is it really possible to argue that they are all equal parties in these discussions?
I think since the results of the 2019 and the strategic review that followed that, the DA is on a strategic path that seeks to remake itself in terms of how the electorate see it. So it's almost getting close to being an ideologue in terms of the position that it is holding. Now, I can understand the stance that it is taking, which may be seen as big brother, because I think that they are attempting to pursue that strategic direction to the latter. However, that behavior is actually not always the best course of action, given the situation, the situational imperatives in each of the diverse situations they are facing in municipalities. So I will call situational leadership, the ability to be able to have nuance and be able to maneuver, notwithstanding an overarching ideological position or strategic path that the party is taking. Because in doing in moving in the direction that it is, because it's not the first time that the parties are complaining about the stance of the DA. In moving in this direction, they may alienate their partners. Well, the worst alternative to working arrangements is being in opposition, and in their rhetoric, they say they are prepared for that worst alternative.
And what about the ANC? Does it just have to accept now that it's lost these metros? Or do you think it can still stage a fight back?
I think the odds are very much higher for the ANC, particularly in these municipalities, especially given the fact that there's almost a concerted effort among these opposition parties not to want to work with it. I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them, in this competitive politics environment, still continuing to search for opportunities to topple whichever coalition is going to come. And I think that by virtue of the competitive politics, which parties are too fixated on while it's not necessary for local government, there will always be a need for whichever coalition to look after its back, to look over its back to see whether there aren't any, developing interests in forming a counter coalition that may be led by the ANC or may have the ANC as a dominant party. So I wouldn't rule them out completely in these metros, but they do face greater odds than the DA.
Ongama Mtimka, always good to speak to you. Thank you.